Good morning and welcome to Sunday. Sarah here. I'm so glad to be here and I'm so glad that you are too. I'm not literally actually glad to be physically here, but that's a story for another time, really. I am grateful to have a place to stay, but there was a mix up at one of my hotels and so I had to come up with something quickly. So anyway, that said, let me adjust my camera here a little bit. Okay. So glad to be here with you guys. Let's see. I'm in Santa Barbara, leaving today on 9-hour bus ride. Not bus ride. Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm a little distracted, by my environment. I'm going on a 9-hour train ride today to San Francisco, and I am super excited for that. It's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be beautiful. Lots of scenery to see, and I've heard great things about this part of the train ride. So this morning I wanted to share some thoughts, as always, on Sunday mornings. And I was trying to come up with a name for today's message, and I came up with the greatest pyramid scheme ever told, because I feel that strongly about this topic. It's been a topic that I have looked at and studied for a long time. In my work as a therapist, I saw this theme, which I'm going to tell you in a minute here, just over and over and over and over. In my early work with children, the first 10 years as a social worker, I worked with children. I went in the homes and the schools, and there was just so much struggle in the work that I was doing. It forced me to study and to do the deeper dive into what is really going on here. Like, people that are in this place really struggling, as I call it, down and out struggles. And I just mean by that, like, people that are struggling with their basic fundamentals, like getting by in the day to day, where they were feeling like life was really out to get them and life was really, really hard just to have like the basics of what they needed, right? So like people who are struggling to put food on the table and to have enough money to pay the bills and all of those types of things. And this theme kept coming up over and over. And it infiltrates into more places than I realized in certainly my first 10 years, even my first 20 years of working with people. And I would say in the last 5 years, I've had massive new levels of awareness of how this theme impacts people. And even in the last 6 months to a year, I've had, again, new massive awarenesses around how it affects people. So the greatest pyramid scheme ever told, ever formulated, I guess, would be a pyramid scheme. But it's this concept of loving others before yourself. And the phrase that I say a lot and teach with my clients, and certainly with myself, that I've had to do a lot of work around, is how to prioritize yourself. That the key to living a really healthy, rich, full life where you're able to give back and contribute to the greater good at your fullest potential is by prioritizing yourself first. So the place where that has evolved out of is this concept that you hear communicated, well, I'll say for myself, I've heard communicated, and clients over the last 20 years that I've worked with have communicated to me a friction, a tension in their belief system of loving others before themselves, and the places and spaces in which for, the first 20 years as I was a therapist, now I'm a life coach and helping people to create their best lives. But previous, I was a therapist and helping people who were really struggling, the work that I was doing, that they would come into these places of conflict with themselves about not being able to resolve a past situation, a past trauma, past experience, or not being able to have what they wanted, essentially, is really what it boils down to, is that they would find themselves in these spaces in life where they would want something, right? Some of the core things that people desire is to feel safe, to feel provided for, to have the money that they desire, to be able to pay their bills, but also to be able to do the things that bring them joy. And that they would find themselves in this tension of not being able to access a part of themselves because their belief system wouldn't allow them to do so. And so it's this place, this, like I said, this friction, this tension where people find themselves where they're wanting more, they're wanting something, right? They're wanting love. I mean, it's such a common one, where there's been a hurt in a relationship and they're wanting something more, right? They're wanting to be loved, to be more heard, to be more connected. And they've experienced multiple situations, multiple heartbreaks of all different kinds, not just romantic love. And they've experienced all of these hurts that it's compounded over time onto their senses and to their identity. And it's left them feeling very confused about how to get the thing that they really want, right? If we're just sticking with this one theme of how to get the love that they really wanted. And so I would meet with them in the counseling setting, in the therapy setting, around one, helping them to resolve some of their past hurts, traumas, experiences with heartbreak and not getting love the way that they wanted, or being very hurt by other people. And then also talking with them around how to get the love that they wanted and what that would look like. And now I do the reverse, right? Where I sit down with people and I help them get really clear on what it is that they do want. What is the love, the love or the money or the income or the job or the relationship with their kids, whatever it is that they're really wanting in their life. Or maybe they're just wanting to, but maybe they're wanting to travel and they're wanting to experience more of life. And they can't figure out how to get the thing that they desire. So I help them get really clear on what is the desire and help them cultivate that, because our society is so trained to be taking care of other people first, most people haven't given a lot of time to really nurturing and cultivating their desires and their dreams and what that actually looks like. They are very quick to describe to me the thing that they don't want and the hurts that they've experienced in the past and all of the things that lean in on them and actually keep them from having what they want, right? Because again, we're such a culture, and I can only really speak to my world, we'll call it, my culture, my environment, my spaces and places, the U.S., but I believe it reaches far beyond, and really it's a global problem. And so when people are so focused on the problem and the things that they don't want, they inadvertently create more of the things that they don't want. And very few people really have that information. So I make it now my life mission to pass that information on to you, because it has completely transformed my life and revitalized me to be so excited about the next 40, 50, 60 plus, I don't know how many years I'll have. I used to be a person, total side note, I used to be a person who was like, I would be really good to die somewhere in my 80s, because 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was like, well, let's say 15 years ago, I was not excited about life. I was definitely not excited to be living past 80 something, because my mind and the way that I saw life 15 years ago was that life was really hard. I had to think about it there for a minute, how I would really formulate that. And oh yeah, that's right. Came back to me quick enough. that life was really hard and difficult and painful. And there were all these things that had to be navigated and dealt with. And who wants to live for very long when life feels like that? No, right? And my whole life, just to be like really clear, for those of you who've been following me, it's like the dominant theme was that life was really hard. Of course, I mean, I've had a beautiful life in many, many ways, and I've had a lot of great opportunities. And so, which, sometimes makes it even more confusing, right? Because you have all these like great opportunities mixed in with so much extreme hardship, fears, anxieties, feelings of not good enough. And so life feels really fucking crazy. I mean, really, at the end of the day, when you're having so much amazing stuff happen in your life, and you also have so much really challenging stuff, and you don't really know how to make sense of it. And I'll say I didn't know how to make sense of it in a way that actually allowed me to be excited about the future, right? So it was like, I had some skills for sure, and I had made it through all those very difficult times. But the dominant theme by the time I got to 38 was still, I was miserable. And so while I had a lot of great opportunities and I had a beautiful, life, beautiful family, lots of great job opportunities, my core themes were still one of struggle and fear and uncertainty and hardship, and not enough was really the main one that was really running me. And it led into these beliefs around I have to work really hard and I have to give to other people. That's my main function here, is to give to other people. And it ended up translating that what I was shooting for was not really all that exciting for me. It was not really something that I was looking forward to. Like this idea, once I was just around hitting 40, a little bit before 40, wow, the next 45 years are going to be like these last 20. Like, is that really what the next 25 years of working are going to be about? Is me working at this exhaustive level, helping others who are really struggling and who I just really didn't see that they were going to get that much better. They would get better, but they weren't transforming into very successful, productive members of society. And so that was my experience, and that is the experience I've seen for so many people that I've worked with in both therapy and in coaching. And so that's what transitioned for me to now be helping people create their best lives, to ultimately, fundamentally learn to prioritize themselves. And so, we get taught through all different streams of thought, certainly religious views and thought, the ones that I'm familiar with, is very much teaching you to help others, to contribute to the greater good before yourself. Certainly in our society, we hear a lot of being good, doing the right thing, and that ends up getting translated in ways like sacrificing yourself and giving to others, taking care of other people before yourself, various things that ultimately leave a person exhausted, depleted, feeling unloved or not loved as much as they want to, feeling confused about the future, feeling uncertain about the future, unexcited about the future. I mean, I've talked to young people in the early 20s range who are not excited about the future, and even earlier than that, who are not excited about the future. And so not excited about the future, who are super stressed, who are feeling like they're not doing a good enough job, who are feeling very fearful, who are feeling unsafe, and all these different feelings that they're navigating. And naturally, I think the biggest downfall, the biggest harm, we'll say the biggest result that comes from loving others before yourself, is that we teach that to our children. So when you grow up and you believe through the various streams of thought, like all of these different places where this, because it's so pervasive in our entire culture, you're just going to learn it everywhere. You're certainly going to learn it from religious institutions. You're going to learn it from your parents. I mean, it's just so everywhere. And then you grow up with those same sentiments, and maybe you rebel in certain ways, and people figure out how to be successful, right? And how to excel in certain areas. But they're not learning, I'll say on the whole, the majority of the population is not learning on the whole how to be a successful human being in every area. And so you learn how to maybe be really good in business or really good in relationships, but then not as good in making money or not as good in managing your physical health. And so all of that adds up to you now become a parent, and then you teach that very same philosophy, set of philosophies, and set of beliefs to your child. And so they too start to take on this same overarching belief set about working really hard and caring for other people as the priority. And, even just the sentiment of like your family is the most important thing, right? That is still other people. Okay. So like I'm literally talking about everyone when I say prioritizing others before yourself. It leaves you with this confused sentiment of how do I take care of myself and do well, like take care of my health and take care of my emotions and make money and all the things, while at the same time prioritizing all these other people, right? And so you then as a child grow up in that environment where there's like confusion ultimately. And then you go and you raise your own kids and pass on that confusion. And your kids will respond in, very similar ways that you did. And in some areas, they'll rebel greatly. And in other areas, they'll grow up and be just like you. And again, they'll have your great qualities and also your struggles, right? And they will be learning this overarching theme of prioritizing others, which ultimately produces confusion, anxiety, fear, uncertainty, because the focus isn't where it's intended to be in order for people to truly thrive at their best. So let me know if you're with me so far. And if you're having any questions or you're, really like, oh, I don't know about this. I expect it to feel that way because it flies in the face of so many teachings and so many belief systems. And it's okay, right? I'm more than happy to dialogue. I love dialoguing on this. And feel free to drop any questions as we're going along for sure, or any of your own personal comments or thoughts for our greater conversation here. So what do we do with all of this, right? Once you really start to see like, wow, yes, this is true. We really are taught to prioritize other people, and we're taught to, do things and be things for others that we feel a conflict about doing. And we find ourselves feeling into a lot of obligations and responsibilities that we really don't want. And we don't know how to say no to. Like even just some of like the basic things with like spending time with certain people where we like really don't want to, but like we do anyway because we have this like set of beliefs that tell us that we should. And so we become, like I said, a culture, a person that has so many of these shoulds and have tos, and also at the same time holds all of these like desires that are wanting to be fulfilled, that are wanting to come out, right? I mean, your purpose work is over here in those desires. Your intended reason for being on the planet, that gift and gifts that are within you to share with the world, to contribute to the greater good, are all over here, right? In your desires. And when you're only doing them to help others, you grow weary and tired. So we want to be people who are excited about life, who are invigorated, who are energized, who feel like we can continue to like run the race, right, to the finish line, and that we can run the race to the finish line and feel really, really good when we get there, not drop dead exhausted, like we're so glad we got there and now we can just fall out. That's not what we're intended for. Like nowhere is the teaching to do that. Quite the contrary, the teaching is to find rest and to be in rest, right? And yet many of us run around with fears and anxieties and worries as the dominant thing, the dominant experience. So we're intended for rest, and we're intended to be in relationship to love, right, as our highest good, as our highest function. And so it is really what's intended is to love God and then others, right? And so you ask like, well, where do I come in? I'm not like on the list. It's kind of how I used to think about it. But really what is intended is to love God, right? And when you think about what does that mean to love God, right? And who is God? And that's like a whole other conversation. And really, I'm just talking about God as the creator, right? Not God inside of a religion. The way that I think about it now is God is in us, right? We are of the same substance as God. And if God dwells within us and we are of God, then we are to love ourselves as well as we effort to love God, right? I mean, most people grew up thinking that God is like out here. Even though we get told he's in here, we really think he's out here. And so if you allow that to evolve and to mature, that it shifts into like, oh, God really is within me. His power is within me, right? I mean, God is everywhere, but we really get to sink into God's power is within me. And so if God is within you and you are of God and you are his, his people, we'll say, right? His creation, then we have to reframe how we love ourselves, because we can really only love God to the degree that we love ourselves. Because the way our minds are designed, that just is what our minds are capable of, is doing. Like our minds can't do something past what our own minds can understand. And so when you think about it that way, the shift is very clear that you are to prioritize yourself. You are to love yourself first. You are to understand that relationship within, right? That spiritual and human relationship, that is the priority, to understand it and to be able to love who you are, knowing who you are. And from that place of richness, that place of beauty, you can now love others. Because when you are poor in your mind, you are poor-minded, you are driven by fear and anxiety and worry. But when you are strong-minded, when you are rich-minded, you are driven by faith. You are driven by trust. You are driven by a sense of purpose and knowing who you are and why you're here. You behave completely different. When you're over here in all of the anxieties and the fears and the not enoughs, you're working from this place of uncertainty in who you are. You may not think that, but you are demonstrating it. Your actions never lie. So look for your actions, right? The results that your actions are creating, the doing that's going on in your life. If you're getting to the end of the day, we'll say both figuratively and literally, and you're exhausted and depleted, you're not actually living as you're intended to live. You're not living from that sense of faith, trust, knowing who you are. From that sense of trust in your understanding of how life works, and a sense of faith in, ultimately, in the one who created you. And you're not finding that rest in your purpose, and rest in the knowing that life is working out as it's intended for you, right? And so if you're not in that space, then you're probably over here in this space, and you're working really hard to hopefully get over there, or to feel like you're over there, but you're just not actually over there. That really is the work. That is the understanding that you need, that you're seeking desperately, right? And many people think, oh, it comes with time, it comes with age, and it doesn't. Literally, you could live your whole life and never get to sing the song you're meant to sing, never get to create the masterpiece you're meant to create to contribute to the greater good. Ultimately, you get to the end of your life not passing on the legacy to your children that you actually truly desire to pass on to them, which is one of faith, is one of trust and certainty and empowerment that you're capable of accomplishing exactly what you're meant to accomplish. And instead, we end up passing on this legacy of fear, of lack, of suffering. And so the calling for you now, right, as you're beginning to percolate in your mind and to consider loving God, is to love myself. And from that magnificent place, you are then to love others. And you are then to execute your greater good and your way of helping others. Where do you go from here, right? You're like, wow, this is really good. This is really true. I can totally see, like, yeah, I'm over here. I'm in the swirl. I'm in the exhaustion. I'm in the hamster wheel. I'm in the trying to do good, trying to figure it out, wanting to be better. I'm in the midlife crisis. I'm in the, job that doesn't satisfy, or in the marriage that's like off the rails. And you're wanting, right? So wanting to be in the rest, so wanting to be in the love, so wanting to be in the, ooh, I get to the end of the day and I feel like so good about the life that I've lived today. It's available for you, my friends. It is available. So, of course, it takes some work, it takes some effort, because you've been living this race for so long. To come over here to live the good race, right? The race that you get to the end and you're actually like excited about the end versus completely depleted and exhausted. The biggest thing I can offer for you this morning is to get started. It's really to get started. I put off getting started on that race for quite some time. Why? Because I thought I knew better, right? I was a therapist. I was educated. I had, grown up in the church, and I had gone to Bible school and all of the things, right? And so I had this thought, this knowing that I knew that I was doing all the right things and that I should be feeling over here. And I wasn't. And in fact, I got, like I described earlier, I got to almost 40 feeling really quite miserable about life and being like, is this it? Like, I've done all of these things, checked all these boxes, followed all of these rules to get to here? Oh no. Like, I need something more to motivate me, to inspire me to live the next 45 years, something, 40 to 45 years, just to work the next 20, 25 years and be like excited about my work and my contribution. I need something more. And so it's really to get started, to make that decision, to invest in yourself, to be mentored, to be taught how to run this race, how to transition from this race where you thought you were on the right race, or the race that was going to take you to the finish line you wanted to get to, and enjoy the path, right? Be in the rest. It's just a simple decision to say, yeah, I don't want to live that way anymore. It's time for me to learn how to live this other way, how to receive the understanding that you need in order to be able to live a more restful life and more fulfilling life, a life with less confusion, less anxiety, right? Where those aren't your normal states. And so it is to begin, to get started, to access the resources in front of you where you're like, oh, I see that this person really has something for me and I want to learn from them. I want what they have. Don't let the money scare you. Yes, of course it costs money, right? Like that is what it means to invest in something, to invest in an education of how to live a different way. Of course, don't let that scare you. It just means it's a real thing that is requiring of your resources and for you to fully get invested in so that you can have this life, right? For the rest of your life. So you can also begin in small steps, literally today, by asking yourself that question that I normally end my talks with, which is go do that thing you most want to be doing today, right? You start working on what is the vision? What is the thing I really want to be doing? How do I want to really be spending my time? And instead of what you normally do with what should I be doing? What do I have to do? Right? Asking yourself, what do I feel called to do? What do I feel led to do? What is my heart desiring? Start getting clear with yourself every day, every morning, maybe several times throughout the day, asking yourself those questions and see what comes up. See how far off out of alignment you are with what's true for you, right? When we're out here doing all of the shoulds, all of the have-tos, like that's us being human. It's not us actually accessing our spiritual selves, right? And that's not actually us acting in faith. That's us acting in human doing. We're just out there doing, right? So bringing it back to what am I called to? What am I meant for? And allowing for faith to lead you, allowing for that spiritual self, right? The spirit within you, the God within you to lead you. Do you wake up every morning asking yourself, God, what is it that I'm meant to do today? Because if you're not, it's very easy to see how you can get down this road and feel confused and tired and anxious. So allow it to be easy. Asking that question, right? And throughout your day, asking it, it unfolds beautifully. And educating yourself, right? On what does it mean to head down this road? What does it mean to believe that God is within me? What does that look like? How does that change my belief systems? How does it change about the way that I manage my mind, that I interact with my thoughts? What thoughts do I need to remove, right? What beliefs do I need to remove from the way that I operate, from the way that I make decisions, so that I can be making decisions that really honor who I am and truly honor what I'm called to be doing here on the earth, whatever that is for you specifically. So when you start to really consider how much in alignment am I in with who I am meant to be and what I truly feel called for, let's just start shaking up everything. So you could literally just start with that. That's my takeaway for you on how to start living literally today in a different way. And also leaving with you to start really cultivating the vision for what it is you truly do want, what it is that you carry on your heart, that you feel 100% you're meant for, but you don't actually see that in your world, that you're actually doing it, right? Most people are stuck in a job or a setting of some kind where they're like, I'm never going to get this if I'm over here. And that's right. That's true, right? More time going by does not create this. Only intentional effort and intentional reworking of how your mind operates gets you over to here. And it is so exciting to be over here, right? It makes the difficult days so much easier. And then finally getting started working with your own mentor, with your own guide, your own coach, your own healer, whatever title feels good for you. I like mentor. But being able to actually learn, what does this actually look like? Okay? Getting to the point where you're like, yeah, I don't actually know. Right? Like me several years ago where I was like, yeah, I really thought I knew, but I really don't know. And now I know for sure, right? About 6 years ago, I was like, yeah, I really don't know. Probably actually more like 7 or 8 years. I got to that point where I was like, I really don't know and I need some help. And I started investing massively, started investing financially, my energy and my time to come to an understanding of how to live this race. Because I knew for sure I couldn't keep running that race. And I hit a wall when I got to like 38, around 37, 38. And I was like, no, can't go on. I need to literally learn this race. And for those of you that aren't like hitting a wall, start learning how to do this race now. Don't keep putting it off until you hit the wall. And definitely don't put it off thinking like it'll happen later and or hoping that with time it gets better, because it doesn't. And so many people literally do get to the end of their life and don't feel like they have lived the life they were truly, fully meant to live. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thank you so much for joining me and spending time with me and soaking it in. I'd love to hear from you. How did this impact you? What stood out? What resonated? What didn't? What rubbed you the wrong way? And feel free to send me a private message as well with any of that information. Love to have conversations back and forth with folks. And also feel free, and I implore you really, to get started on this work. And for those of you that are resonating with me and feel like I'm one of those persons that's meant to help guide you, to send me a private message and say, hey, I need to learn how to prioritize myself and create that life that you're talking about because I want it. And we'll hop on a call, learn more about each other, and you'll learn more about how I work, and I'll learn more about what you truly want and help you get started even on the first call with the vision. And we'll take it from there, right? I work with people for 6 months. Initially, a lot of people that I work with continue on for longer than that because they get such good results at the end of the 6 months. They want to make more really good results. But we work one-on-one, and I'm fully remote. As you can see, I'm in California, so I work with my people all online. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me. And for today, go do that thing you most want to be doing, and I'll talk to you soon.